Hi, my name is Michael Hoffenbradel, and I am the writer and director of our short film Reset. This film was for a class, Com 460, at the University of Mary, and it was a collaboration of a bunch of different excellent minds coming together to work towards one goal, which I believe that we achieved in our film Reset. The original idea was my friend Ben Brooks, who's also the producer of the film. He had this funny concept of what would the world be like if we were in a simulation, which that's been explored dozens of times, the Matrix and a hundred others that I can't seem to name. But the idea that we're in a simulation has been explored before. But what made it different, what made Ben's idea different, was that captcha tests are the key. And like those tests are almost glimpses into reality. It's like the simulation breaking almost, and that is how we figure out that we're in a simulation. And so we started off Com 460. We met, and nobody had any good ideas, myself included. And it wasn't until Ben and I sat down in our campus bar and for 4 hours developed this idea of our main protagonist figuring out that the world is a simulation. He starts looping the everyday process. And spoiler alert for those who haven't seen the film, in the end, turns out that there's no escaping, that the whole thing was a loop. And so we developed that idea. I came up with a presentation for class the next day, and everybody seemed to love it. So we decided to go with that idea. I took on the task of writing the script, developing a beat sheet, and discovering how do we make this funny college dude in a bar idea into a short film. And it took 7 drafts. It took a long time to really like develop what we were trying to achieve. And thanks to our professor Merrick Doyce, we were able to add some heart, add some soul into this concept, as well as further develop the true theme behind our movie, which isn't a simulation. That's like an extra part of our film, the whole aesthetics of it. But at the heart of our film is friendship, and I think that is our strongest theme. It's a motif of the entire film as itself. Friendship, friendship. That's the key. It's the key to escaping the simulation in our short film. And when viewers watch our film, that's what I want them to be left with: the idea that friendship will always be the answer to any of life's problems. We had dozens of locations, and that's kind of what set us apart from any other student filmmaker, is the fact that we traveled to so many different places around Bismarck. The main ones that come to my mind are the nursing building, the coffee shop, and the warehouse. Maybe the alleyway, maybe Luke's house, our director of photography's house. But I'd say the coffee shop and the warehouse, those were our big achievements when it comes to location scouting. Set was great. I liked working with all the people. Some of the difficulties that came with it was because we are student filmmakers and we're not industry professionals yet. There's just lack of awareness for how to best set up certain lights or how to ensure that production kept moving forward. There's a lot of standstill, a lot of figuring out ideas on the fly. And myself, especially, I mean, I was a victim to this where I would get stuck in my own head for what shot we need and forget the big picture of it all. Going to the coffee shop, especially, that was a true testament to the ability of student filmmakers, or any filmmakers for that matter, the ability to film high quality materials just by simply asking. Asking, hey, are we able to come in on a Sunday and film in your coffee shop when it's closed? Or for the warehouse, for example, hey, could we film in this warehouse that you're shooting in? Like, could we just borrow a little bit of this section? And the warehouse, especially, that goes. I am so thankful to the founder of Canticle Productions, Daniel Belinsky. He allowed for us to shoot on site. He kind of just stepped back and say, okay, yeah, go ahead. You can use this area. And especially for a student filmmaker to have that ability to step into the role of leadership while not having to worry about people looking over your shoulder or not following correct protocols and stuff. Like it was more so about the ability of my crew to film what we needed to film and do so in a way that like we proved ourselves. We didn't have to answer to anyone. We had complete freedom, and because of that we were able to flourish in our art that we were filming that day. That's a bit bold to call it art, but it's definitely art. So overall, I loved each day that we were on production. It was fun, especially kudos to Rocco and Ben for keeping the spirits of the crew up, just by saying funny jokes. Or um, Ben, who kind of served as the assistant director, he was writing, shooting notes. And then at times he would stop and just draw pictures of me, terribly accurate pictures too, which was frightening. But yeah, it's just those little things that no matter how the film turned out, no matter if people enjoyed it or didn't enjoy it, or it goes on to win an Oscar. All of that aside, the best part about making this was again the memories and the friendships that came from it. Post production was difficult, and a lot of that had to do with the fact that we were so strong in pre production and production. We were ahead of schedule for the entirety of the project up until we hit post production. And I think there were a lot of key factors to that. I was the lead in a play that we were doing. People's lives got busy, and especially just watching the edits, we kind of got stuck in rough cut hell, for lack of better terms, where you're just watching what you filmed and it just depresses you. You're like, what was I thinking? The warehouse scene is just terrible. You can't hear anything, and it's super disheartening too. Like, how do you how do you go from an amazing production where you feel like you're on top of the world, we're getting all the best stuff, we're going to win an Oscar with this, to, oh crap, we have nothing, this is terrible. And how do you get past that? And it was hard. It was hard. I think in the end, the reason why it was able to be completed was in thanks wholly to our professor, Professor Doyce. I'll never forget walking in Tuesday before the premiere and his lecture that he gave us, where it's like, look, this is bad. It's not where it needs to be. You guys had a really strong production, and then you just failed this last month. Like, it was complete failure. We didn't have what we needed to be done. I dropped out. I was busy on other things, and I'd forgotten about the movie. Then people got busy, people got sick, and it was not where it needed to be. Hearing Professor Doyce talk about how his name is on it and he's disappointed in it, it's not. We had so much potential, and to watch it be squandered because of a lack of caring on all of our parts, um, that scared me. And because of that, I then spent the next week. I think it was 56 hours editing the film, and like 6 of those hours was with Professor Doyce in his office, and it was just like a final stretch to save our movie. Pouring everything that I had. You ask Ben, the producer, and especially his fiance Catherine. I just looked like a wreck during the editing process, and it was it was brutal. But that's the thing. In this, like, it's almost like the dark night of the soul. That's a reference to Blake Snyder's The Beat Sheet to Save a Cat. But it just talks about a beat sheet and how you're supposed to like make a film, talking about the different arcs and different moments in the story. And if you consider not necessarily Reset to be following this beat sheet, but like our own creative process, we definitely reached the dark night of the soul during the editing process. But because of that, we were able to squander or scour some remainder of hope in our film, put it together, slap a ribbon on it, and we presented it. It wasn't perfect. It could have been better, and I take full responsibility for how it looked. But with that being said, I'm very happy with how it turned out. I think that, especially considering the fact that we were on a time crunch, I think it looked really, really good, and it showcased the best of my directing ability, the best of Ben's producing ability, the best of Luke's cinematography, the best of Jason's audio, especially. I was very happy with how it turned out, and it taught me a very important lesson of it's never going to be perfect, but all you can do is just keep getting better. Yeah, and the finales, I mean, people enjoyed it, so yeah. Final thoughts. I like it. Go watch it. It's a collaboration of students trying to make something interesting. And although, there's some issues with the plot and not all of it is everyone's cup of tea, I think for those few people who are looking for something different, it's definitely worth a watch.